During my show at his gallery in Maryland, I had the honor of being interviewed by Dr. Thomas Ferleman. And now it's my turn to get my own 15 minutes of fame.
My 15 minutes of fame, I want it, I want it. My 15 minutes of fame, I want it, I want it. My 15 minutes of fame, I want it.
So my first question for you is, to start us off, can you tell us a little about your journey from working in advertising to becoming a full-time painter, and what pushed you to make such a change?
Sure. So I never painted. When I was in high school a long time ago, I saw television commercials. It was back in the days of Mad Men, and they were my bosses. I wasn't that old. You know, I was always looking for ways to express myself, and I looked at television and I said, people get paid to do that, I want to do that. And I did, and I worked in Madison Avenue, and ultimately have my own smaller firm for a long time, for like 27 years. During that time, I had the pleasure of teaching aspiring creative people at a prestigious school in New York. And a perk was that you could take classes for free. So I would take photography, filmmaking, things that were related to what I did, and my wife suggested I take a painting class, and I said, oh wow, because I never painted before. And I did, and it was like a Saturday morning introduction to oil painting class. And ultimately this style kind of popped out. Back then I would take black and white photographs, like historic photographs of my family, and find some funny pictures that I would paint, but they were nostalgic, very kind of dreamy, and they looked like hand-tinted black and white photographs, because it's essentially what they were. And I did them for a while, and I knew what good was because part of my job was contracting people to, you know, photographers, artists, directors, people like that. So, and I had some peers who were showing in galleries, and I took my work around to galleries, and the gallery said, oh, people don't buy pictures of people they don't know. Okay. And eventually that led to doing commissions for others who liked what I did. After a time, I just hated it. I just really didn't like it. And what I did for a living was a lot more challenging, more creative, and paid a whole lot more money. So I said, well, I'm not going to paint anymore, and just stopped. But I had it was burning inside. And I tried in fits and starts, and I really couldn't get it going. Ultimately, I took some classes at a local museum with a very, very good teacher, still a friend. I didn't want to paint what he was painting either. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got caught on a secondary road behind a couple of big rig 18-wheeler trucks in the rain, and the rainwater was splashing on my windshield. We didn't have cell phones back then, or dash cams. So I said, well, maybe I could capture that claustrophobic feeling. That would make a nice painting. And I tried it, and it really wasn't terribly good. But I went, oh, well, and I had kind of a commercial mentality back then. So I said, oh, trucks. You know, I'll be the truck guy. I'll put a truck in everything. because, you need a signature style, right? So I started running around the truck stops and taking pictures, a lot of pictures of trucks, and I wanted to do some big giant portraits of trucks, and I was attracted to the machismo stuff, the exhaust stacks and the lights and the grills and the, drama. And that kind of started me on the journey, and that led to looking for taking other photographs and other types of reference that had that dramatic quality to it, and ultimately it kind of led here, where I would train my eye to kind of look for the interesting details. I would look up, and I see the ductwork and the pipes and how the light and shadow falls on the little tin ceiling, and it became interesting to me. And I would tell people for the longest time that what I was doing is I was looking for abstract information in reality.
Fascinating.
I was having a ball doing that. I had done advertising, been in the advertising business for more than 40 years. How many ads can you do, So after a time, I kind of looked at, I was getting a little older too, and I looked at my financial situation, and I said, well, what would happen if I did this full time? And really, I enjoyed the painting more than I did working with clients and that kind of stuff. And the answer was, you won't die. And I said, oh, okay, I'm going to go do that now. And that was back in, I guess 2013, so about 13 years ago. And I haven't looked back since, and I'm having the time of my life doing what I'm doing.
Was there a point in that transition where there was an element that felt more uncertain, or there a point that felt more exciting? I think you touched on it. Can you elaborate on that feeling?
Well, I mean, sure. I'm always...
Like, can you pay the bills, of course?
Well, yeah, that. And, we live in a society that measures success on how much money you make, and, that kind of stuff. And as an artist, it's kind of hard to make money, any real money. But it was, I take risks, and I've trained myself to take risks. And now with my artistic journey, it's become, okay, what haven't I done? What can I do now? Why does it have to be paint? Why does it have to be two-dimensional? It can be anything. So, there's a lot of uncertainty all the time. And always jumping into the deep end of the pool without a life preserver, and what happens will happen, I don't know.
So that takes a great deal of courage, and it comes through really in your art. There's a courageous leap in some of the innovative expressions you have in different pieces when we walk through the gallery. Particularly I see in the one with the feathers and the...
Okay.
We don't have it on display here, but before I ask you to describe that, and we're going to get to that piece in particular, for people seeing the exhibit for the first time or looking at just these pieces, how would you describe your art?
Well, technically I would say it's like formal abstraction. There's a formality to it. I don't want to say precision, but I like things kind of pleasant. I want to make it beautiful. for myself. I do the best I can. Is it perfect? No. It's never perfect, and the imperfections are what makes us individual and human. So, first and foremost, I have paint for myself. I don't paint. I don't make art, and I've trained myself more and more to make what I like and please myself, without trying to look at it through anyone else's eyes. In their commercial consideration, I have to confess, of course, it's always in my mind, but first and foremost, I'm having fun. And the fun to me is that oh, you know, I haven't seen that before. Let me share it. You know, let me get it out of my system. Let me see if I can do that. Well, you mentioned the one with the feathers. Yeah, I mean, I took a leap. You know, and I had a yeah. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So with that in mind, can you walk us through what we're looking at right here? This is MoMA, right?
Yeah, so I have a habit of looking up and looking and curious. I'm always curious, so I'm always looking for little details and looking for things that. Okay, and I'm a photographer. I don't promote myself as a photographer. With all modesty aside, I'm a damn good photographer. I take pretty good pictures. I got a good eye. So I look like a photographer who's really being true to himself. What is it? What does my eye see? What moment do I want to freeze? What do I want to record for posterity? And what do I want to share? So it's the same thing with photographs. I'm looking for, that's interesting. That kind of, those shapes, that composition, that lighting, that scenario has some emotional appeal, and I love that. And then, could I then take that, and could I translate that into something that I put my hands on to make it my own and share it with you? So I looked up at the MoMA ceiling and saw this composition, and then I did best I could to translate it into a two-dimensional piece of artwork with paint.
Yeah, I think when someone were to see this space, and this comes across in a number of the pieces on exhibit, if they were there, they would probably see the whole space. But your eye is so trained to see a segment of the whole space and not get overwhelmed or confused by the totality of the space. And it comes through in these, but also in some of the machine part paintings, you say, trucks, you're able to capture that unique small segment and almost cause the viewer to get a myopic look at a little part of a big environment in a way that is really vibrant. I mean, this is a huge stairwell, but you're articulating it in a very narrow and vibrant way. It's absolutely stunning. How do you go about, walk us through how does one of your paintings start, and how do you go through the succession to get to a finished piece?
Well, these paintings, not that one, that's different. And I'm glad it's here because there's a transition from these paintings to that.
So let's talk about that. Walk us through how you go through the whole
Well,
composition.
So
We'll do that too.
these paintings, the painting here, painting to your
Yeah.
left. Okay, we were in a shopping mall in that painting. I was standing around, waiting, kind of gazing around, and was fascinated by how the sun was peeking through the skylines and the architecture. And there's a little piece on the left side of the painting that's kind of a facade of a Tiffany store. Their
Down here.
signature, yeah, that pattern. It was, I would take much reference photos of that and a number of different angles and, a series of reference things. And then, kind of work with it to find the abstraction of it, or the essence of it. The details are fascinating. You look at a microscope and you go, ooh, you don't see that every day. So that's what I'm always looking for that. I look for that in everywhere I go. I just do it. I've always done it. So
Was
I have a
that
story.
something in advertising you did as well?
No. One of my earliest memories was I was, pre-cognition, maybe 4 years old. We lived in a old frame house. It was falling apart. And one day the pipes burst in the ceiling, and the water was leaking into the light fixtures and out of the outlets and the switches, and everybody was alarmed, but I was too young to be upset about it. It was fascinating. A couple of weeks, a month, I don't know how long later, the paint started to peel on the ceiling, and there was kind of a little onset of mold. And I would notice these shapes, and like you do when you look up at the clouds when you're a kid, same thing. And I would kind of look for relationships in the shapes, So I'm looking up here at your tin ceiling, and I would fixate on the patterns and the relationships and how the ones on the left side were related to the ones on the right side and that kind of stuff. And I always do that. I go when I'm bored. I have jury duty. And I have to go to the bland, boring courthouse with the acoustic tiles. And I would count them. I would do. So I just do it. So it's just something that it was ingrained in me from a very early age. And then I'm a child of the 60s. I grew up in Manhattan, in New York City. And it was a time of upheaval and change. Everything was changing when I was in the advertising business. Fashion was changing. Cinema was changing. Art was changing. The social mores were changing. Everything. And it was drama was there. It was a little edgy, a little dangerous, a little exciting, because you're working on a high wire, I think that creeps through in my work. So there's that drama still, and excitement. I'm trying to convey that excitement. And,
It's fascinating. So when you look at a piece, let's say you're in jury duty and you're looking at the tiles and you're counting them, or you're in a shopping mall or MoMA, how do you decide what to maybe keep, what to focus in on, what to throw away and not use?
Well, that's art. So art is a process of elimination. You know, deciding what to throw away and what to keep. All art is that, making decisions. You know, there's other art hanging in the walls in this studio space. So the artist is making choices on what he wants to do. And, well, if you're cooking, right, things go into a recipe. If it's too much, it's too much. So you gotta throw something away, you gotta eliminate it down to its essence and its purity. And then, you know, if you're in a very fine restaurant, it's also the presentation. How is it presented? How does it look on a plate? That's going to contribute to how it tastes almost. And how does it smell? So it's all a series of choices. And what makes us individuals are what choices we make.
So can you tell us now a little bit more about the differences in both your abstract realism? So you take a realistic space, you convert it to an abstract, you home in on a small space and really blow that up. But there's a whole other part of your art. It's represented by the piece behind you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us the differences?
So these paintings here, I learned to paint with photographic reference. I explained that in the early days it was old family black and white photographs. You had them, you know, a little decollage 120 film of you as a kid. So that was meaningful, but I learned to paint that way. And so for most of my painting life, that's what I did, and was afraid to not. But I always felt restricted because the photograph, or what I chose to keep in the photograph, or how I chose to crop the photograph, dictated to me what the painting was going to be. All right, going back to advertising. Part of my responsibility was, how does it look? What's it going to look like? How are you going to present it on film, or how are you going to present it on the page, or how is it going, you know, all of those things. And I had to make choices. Same thing, was editing a lot. So I do have a plan always in my mind, but back in the advertising days, I was making it up. Using the photograph, I wasn't making it up anymore. I was, you know, using the photo as my architecture, my blueprint. And it was very restricting because if it wasn't right, it was wrong. So if I have these little lights here on the bulkhead, and those little lights are not spaced right, if one's over there, then it's not correct. I would tell people jokingly that it's like showing up to a date with a zit, you know? I mean, it's not going to bother you because all you're going to do is look at the wrong part of it. So I had to make it correct. Now, I no longer work from photographic reference. Now, I work from internal reference. It comes from me. And I dare say that because these were made from a photograph, other people could do it too. I don't think anybody else could do that.
Right.
Because that's entirely me. And I think why we make art is we have a need to express ourselves. Psychologically, at some point in our upbringing, somebody said, oh, that's wonderful. And, oh, I got some love, so I want some more. So that's what drives us. But deep down, why we started it in the first place is to express our voice, to have a voice. And that's why people do what they do. I think everything everyone does is autobiographical. The clothes you wear, the car you drive, your lifestyle, it's your story. I want to tell my story. So this, I find, I'm telling my story now. It's nobody else's is mine personally, and it's a joy because I give myself permission to get it out. So now the paintings might start as a little chicken sketch, or an idea that I have in my mind. That I say, okay, well, I'm going to use that, and I can visualize it. I have a unique facility to go to empty space and see it, like an interior decorator or an architect. You could dream up what it's going to look like. So you have an idea, and then you use some physical tools to realize that. Sometimes it exceeds your expectations, sometimes it matches your expectations, sometimes it falls short. Yeah, not everything I do is wonderful. It's like, sometimes it's terrible. But each time you take a risk, each time you do something and you look at it and you say, I did that, that's pretty nice. It gives you the courage to kind of try a little bit more.
Gosh, it's fascinating to hear this. What was the emotional or mental journey that took you from this, for which my words, not yours, mastered this, to taking the leap of innovation to that requires abandoning an experience, an understanding of, my words again, mastery, to a new innovation. What was that emotional or mental leap to go from this to that?
Well, there was a switch that went off. We went to an indoor sculpture facility, and it was a fascinating. And so, what I would describe, when I would describe what I did to people, I would say, well, I'm painting abstract paintings in the guise of realism. They're not. It has nothing to do with what it is. It's not. I'm not painting an object. I'm painting the abstraction that I find derived from the object, and I don't have an attachment to the object. So we went to this indoor sculpture facility, and there was a wonderful glass sculpture done by an artist named Larry Bell. And it consisted of 6-foot square panes of glass that might have been an inch or more thick, stacked together in L, as an L, so they wouldn't fall down. And you had the green of the glass, and some of the glass was sandblasted, so it was like diffused. Some wasn't, so it was shiny. So you had the diffusion of the glass plus the reflections that were in the glass, and then when you look through the stacked panes of glass, increasingly the information that you saw through the panes of glass was abstracted, got blurry and strange, and had different shades and different colors. And I went, oh, that's kind of interesting. So maybe I can make painting from that. So I took some reference photos, I went back a second time, took some more, and decided I would make a series of paintings based on Larry Bell's sculpture. And I didn't want them to look all the same. I wanted them to have a variation. So I would bring them into a computer program and I would play around with colors and change the color values to make the paintings, so they would be based on the photograph, but they wouldn't exactly be the same. While I was doing them, I had a thought, oh, wait a minute, I don't need photographs to do this. I can just make it up. I just make it up. It was freeing. So now I just make it up. And there's no right or wrong. But before, because I was using the photograph, there was a right or wrong. But now there's no right or wrong.
So is it right to say you kind of went from, in the early advertising days, there was an absolute, you are either right or you are wrong?
No. In the early advertising days, you're using, you try to use creativity as a way to capture someone's attention, engage them in a dialogue, start to have a conversation with them so that you can then manipulate them and push them in the direction you want them. You were in sales. That's what it is. And it's about commerce. It's about getting them to nod their head and say, yeah, that makes sense, okay. I want to do that. So there was a degree of creativity in there. So that's what creative was. And then it, rewards you for being creative. So that was different. But when you started out and you started coming up with ideas, that's what it was about. It doesn't come from in here. It comes from out there somewhere. I don't know. I go and I go take a walk and I have an idea. Boom, so same thing happened here. So that was like that. I don't need photographs, but it wasn't something that I planned to do. It just happened.
So can you walk us through how this painting?
Yeah, so this painting, I saw an album cover and it inspired me, and I it was a mental note. And so this one's called West Coast Jazz with that stereophonic sound, because, or cruising on Sunset with top down in my 88 Monocle. So it had kind of like a 1950 vibe to it.
Nice.
And I love playing around with the titles. You can be creative with the titles too.
So we don't have it on exhibit right now, but I can't end this interview without talking about the Tar and Feathers painting, or the one that will never show in the National Gallery of Art. Tell us a little bit. You're going to have to describe it to us now.
All right. So what happened is I work in a big studio building with a lot of artists in it, and some of the artists are superstar artists. I have the good fortune of being right next door to Amy Sherrill, who's a superstar artist. For reference, for people may or may not know, she painted the official portrait of, well, not the new one, but the first portrait of Michelle Obama when she was in the White House.
In the beautiful blue dress.
In the dress. Yeah. And basically she would set up a photo shoot. So Michelle Obama was in a garden and she was in a beautiful floral dress. And Amy took out the background and isolated the figure in the dress. And her signature style now, increasingly more, they almost look posterized, where the backgrounds are flat colors, and they don't, nothing is in the way of the information about the figure. She painted portraits. Unless it contributes to the scenario. So she had a farmer on a tractor, so you see the grass and the sky and the silence, but mostly it's just either yellow or orange or blue or a primary flat tone with the figure isolated. In Michelle's case, that's what she did. She paints people of color. She's a black woman, and her intention is to present people who are celebrating who they are, rather than just celebration of individuals. So you see these people, and they're people you would want as your neighbor or friends, or just lovely people. She did a painting of a trans person posing as a Statue of Liberty, holding up a torch, and she had a show, a retrospective show that we had seen in New York, that started in Tokyo, went to San Francisco, then it was in New York, and it was supposed to move to the Smithsonian Museum. When it went to Washington, before it went to the Smithsonian, she was asked to justify that painting to the Smithsonian. Everywhere else she didn't have to justify anything. Her answer was, my paintings are inclusionary. I am not judging anyone, and they're celebratory. And if you have a problem with the painting, I don't want to show here. So she pulled out of the show. It angered me. As you can see, my paintings are pretty. I don't try to be political. I'm not saying there's not a place for that in society, but not me. I'm not trying to change anyone. It's mine. I'm trying to find something that we can all agree on, and I'm kind of saying, hey, isn't that cool? Don't you like that? That's what I'm about. It's up to other artists to kind of change the world. I'm not trying to change the world. I'm trying to, change your life for the positive, but I don't want to get into negative stuff. But I just had to say something. And so I had this idea, and the painting that you're talking about is gold for the symbolic of the current administration, Trump, and tar and feathering. So it's basically, I use black modeling paste, which is kind of tar, sticky stuff, and then I took real bird recommended paste. And it's a pretty painting, it's beautiful, but it's a little different in purpose. So it's called "This Won't Be Shown at the Smithsonian Anytime Soon."
So it is absolutely a beautiful painting. It is striking, it is innovative, different. And I think apart from knowing the story, you would still love the piece. There's no doubt about it. It is large, it is bold. When you apply the story to it, it creates a whole nother level of clarity that is uniquely your statement. Was that Was that intentional? Were you
Oh, yeah,
thinking
you
about
betcha. Sure. Absolutely, it was my statement.
Yeah.
And it was something I had to get out of my system, you know, and then get on. But what it did is it opened the door to materiality. Let me introduce other materials other than just flat paint. You know, so the next painting I did was I used concrete as a substrate, and now I'm playing with other materials, and you know, why does it have to be paint? You know, so
And the piece right next to the one we just talked about, that's with concrete.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, an abstract painting. It's very simple, minimalist painting, but the texture of the surface makes it quite interesting.
And that was intentional, why we put those pieces next to each other,
Yeah.
is to really express the innovation taking place. So that question, follow along with the comment on innovation. So is Allan Gorman still innovating?
Absolutely. I read an essay that was written by a professor for literature students, and we're talking about the artistic journey and in past, present, and future. And I think it's applicable to all of us in all stages of our life. In the beginning, we copy. We see what other people did, and we try to do it. And we get to a point where we have some proficiency in it. So that's the past. So we're basically acknowledging the past. And then we get to a point where we feel comfortable enough to kind of make it our own. And that's the present. As we mature, you get to a point, stage of life, or stage of maturity, where you're looking to see what can I do next. I don't want to keep doing the same thing. I want to move on.